Today is Sunday, September 11th, 2016, and this is the beginning of an interview with Woody at the VFW Veterans Village in Fort McCoy, Florida. My name is Conrad Helge, and I will be the interviewer. Also present is Sam Kwiatkowski, who will operate the video. Elwood H. Sapp, could you tell us your full name and address?
My name is Elwood H. Sapp. I live at Fort McCoy.
Thank you. Where and when were you born?
I was born September the 7th, 1932 in Fernandina Beach, Florida.
How old are you today?
I'm 84 and 3 days.
Happy birthday. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My father, he had the same name as I do, and he was born in Waldo, Florida, which is only 35 miles from here. And my mother's from Alabama.
What were their occupations?
My father was an electrician. My mother was a waitress.
Thank you. Did you have any siblings?
I had one brother.
What was his name?
His name was Ronald Sapp.
Did your siblings serve in the military?
Yes.
Where?
A whole bunch of places. England, Japan, and the United States, and I don't know all the places.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
I was a high school kid.
When did you enter the service?
I entered in May the 22nd, 1954.
Which branch of service did you serve?
I served in the Air Force.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
Why did you choose that specific branch of the military?
Because I liked it.
What was your rank?
I was an Airman First Class.
Where were some of the places that you served?
I served in Argentia, Newfoundland, and Las Vegas, Nevada.
Where did you receive your basic training?
I received my basic training in Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio.
Can you describe the basic training that you had there?
Yeah, there was a lot of walking, a lot of marching, general basic training. It was same as World War II basic training in the Army because the Air Force had just split from the Army then. And so we had the same training as the Army did.
What weapons did you qualify on during basic training?
I qualified on the M1 Garand, the .45 pistol, the carbine, 30 caliber machine gun, and the 50 caliber machine gun. And later on, I served on the only base that had only had 5-inch Navy rifles on them, and I learned to fire those.
That must have been cool.
It was. They had a shell about that big.
What qualification level did you achieve?
Qualification level?
Yes, sir.
Well, if you go by the Air Force's numbers, it was a 7 level.
What was your military specialty?
I had 3 military specialties. I was military police first, and I didn't like that because all we did was walk guard duty. And I got into motor pool after that, and when I got transferred back to Las Vegas, I got aircraft refueling.
Did you receive any special training?
I received no special training.
Do you recall your instructors?
No.
How did you adapt to military life?
Got along okay.
At the time, were you married or were you single?
Half and half.
What do you recall about physical regimen?
Well, it was, you had to stay fit, like that, and your training will do that for you.
What were the barracks like?
Well, up in Newfoundland, all the barracks were steam heated, and they were air conditioned in the wintertime, in the summertime, and in the wintertime they were heated, steam heated, and they were brick buildings. They were first class brick buildings, and the whole squadron stayed in the same building. We had, and the buildings had the barracks. They had the orderly room. They had a supply room. They had a day room. Everything, and even had the mess hall in one building. Everything was one building. And when I got to Las Vegas, we had World War II. They were not brick buildings. They were just, regular construction.
What do you recall about the food?
Well, I got fat. I got up to 225 pounds one time.
Do you remember anything about your social life during that time?
Yeah, we had some. It depended on where I was. In Newfoundland, the base I was on was 90 miles from paved roads. So all we had was the fishing villages along the coastline to go to, because we were out in the middle of nowhere. And if you wanted to go, you could hire a taxi. They'd take you where you wanted to go and drop you off. And you had to find a place to stay. And usually you stayed in somebody's home with them. They allowed you to stay in their home with them. And, it was all like that.
Did you serve during a war?
I served during the Korean War, but I did not serve in combat.
Where did you serve?
I served at the two places I told you.
Were you part of specific operations?
Well, what we did, the base I was on was a supply base for the whole Northeast Air Command, which covered Newfoundland, Iceland, Greenland, and places like that, and we supplied all the supplies for them.
What are some memories of going overseas?
Pardon?
What are some memories of going overseas?
Well, going over the boat, I was on one of the general class troop ships. That's one of the bigger ones. And
so you traveled there by boat?
Yeah.
Were you issued any special equipment?
No, not going over there. We were issued just our regular clothing.
Were you given any special equipment while you were there?
No, nothing special. Yes, we did. They gave us a parka and stuff like that.
Were you in combat at all during your time?
No.
What action did you witness?
None. No combat action.
Did you admire your commanding officer?
I very seldom saw him.
Did you admire the people you served with?
Well, I don't know what you'd say admire. I liked them. I didn't consider myself admiring anybody,
What kind of friendships did you form while serving?
Well, I had some good friendships, but after we got out, we got separated, and I have only been able to find two of them that I served with since then, 50 years later. I found one guy in Pennsylvania and the other guy in Oregon. I talked to the one in Oregon and I haven't seen him, but I talked to him. But the one up in Pennsylvania, I've been by to see him a couple times.
Were they your best friends, or did you have other best friends?
Those were my best friends.
How did you stay in contact with family back home?
For the family back home, mail.
Mail? All right.
Snail mail.
What did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
Well, we shot pool and played games in the day room and got the NCO club and stuff like that.
Sounds fun. Did you get enough sleep?
Oh, I got plenty of sleep.
Where were you when the war ended?
Well, when the war ended, I was in Las Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base.
How did you return home?
Well, that was home. I lived there then.
How long were you overseas?
I was overseas for 2 years.
How were you received by your family?
You're here again?
Were you
Very well.
were you received any differently from your community?
No.
How did you adjust to civilian life?
Well, I just became a civilian again. Back then, we didn't have the problem where the people that created trouble for the military. They still respected them. So we didn't have the trouble like the Vietnam guys did. You know, stuff like that.
What have you done since leaving the military?
What have I done? I became an electrician, worked all across the country, traveled a lot, rode my motorcycle a lot around across the country.
What were some of your most memorable experiences?
Well, I actually worked at the nuclear test site in Nevada, where they tested nuclear weapons, and that was an interesting experience. And you've heard of Area 51?
Yes.
Where they got all the
aliens and stuff.
Aliens and stuff. There are no aliens there. It was only 10 miles across the mountains from me, from where I actually worked. And I tried to get over there, but where I was working, the area I was working in wouldn't release me to go over because they wanted me to work there. Now, my roommate, we had civilian dormitories out there, and we kept a room out there so because we worked overtime a lot, and so we didn't have to go back to town every night. You know, when we worked overtime, we kept a room out there, and my roommate actually worked in Area 51. So
Wow.
there's no aliens there.
Has your military service impacted your feelings about war?
Well, I don't like it. I wouldn't want to be in one, but there are things we have to do that,
Did your service impact your feelings about the military?
no.
How did your wartime experiences affect your life?
My wartime experiences affected my life. Not really. It didn't affect it hardly any.
Did you have post-traumatic stress disorder, or do you know someone that did?
I know someone that did, but I don't have any trouble that way because I wasn't in combat. Blah, blah, blah.
You said you knew someone that did. How has PTSD manifested itself?
Well, PTSD in him, he was an alcoholic too, and that's part of it. You know, that's part of the PTSD, and it finally killed him.
What affected...
And he was my son.
I'm sorry to hear that.
He died last January.
What did he do when he served?
Hmm?
What did he do when
He
he
was
served?
in the military police in the Army, and he served in Germany too.
Did he serve during any war?
Well, he served in the country here, but then he got out.
Has serving in the military had any effect on your faith or spirituality?
No.
Were you proud of your son when he entered the military?
Yeah.
Have you remained in contact with reunited with fellow veterans?
Well, I tried to find them, and I only found two of them, and I've contacted one of them and seen the other one.
Are you a member of any veteran organizations?
No.
What are some life lessons you learned in the military?
Keep your mouth shut and keep going.
What lessons would you like to pass on to today's generation?
If you're asked to, do it.
Is there anything I forgot to ask about your military experience?
Nothing that I know of.
Okay, thank you for...
It's not, it has to be at least 30 minutes, so we're at 15 minutes.
Well, he's talking too fast.
Yeah. Calm down a little.
I could tell some stories about things that I did when I was in the military.
We'd love to hear them.
They're not exciting. When I was in the military police, we walked guard duty around the country, around the base. And once we got one stripe, corporal, we could be, that's two stripes, PFC and then corporal. We could drive the base patrol or work the main gates and stuff like that. And that was more interesting. And we could have be prison chasers, because we had guys in the guardhouse and we made them work. But they always have to have one guard and one guy out,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And then when I got in the motor pool, I got to, actually I got my first driver's license in the military, and I drove three of the jobs. One of the jobs was I got to be base ration driver, go around to all the warehouses and get the rations, take them to the mess halls, go by the bakery over on the Navy side, get fresh bread and take it, all that kind of stuff, keep the mess hall supplied, and, general things like that. And then I got to drive the base bus, which the Navy ran one bus one way while we were going the other way, crisscross, back and forth. So we'd do that all day long, back and forth. And that was the best duty. Got to know all the girls on the base. And then I got to drive in the courier from McAndrews Air Force Base over to Fort Pepperell, which was 90 miles away. It was in St. John's, the capital. I got to drive the courier over there, go over one day, spend the night there that night, and come back the next day. That was pretty interesting. Got to go to town.
I have a question. What was it like working at the nuclear power plant?
Well, it wasn't a power plant.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the nuclear.
Well, I was an electrician, and what we did was actually hook up bombs to blow up. And we made all the cables and stuff to hook them up with, and we did that on site. We made all the cables up to specs, and then we actually plugged them into the bomb when the time came.
That's scary.
And you know, it was interesting.
Was living on the base in Nevada different from living overseas?
Yeah, yeah, we didn't have the barracks like we had overseas. Those overseas was Roosevelt's favorites up there. That was his favorite thing. And the Navy base there was the headquarters for the North Atlantic Fleet during World War II. So they were headquarters for the North Atlantic Fleet. Roosevelt came there and met with Churchill in that bay.
After you served, you said you were an electrician. Where were some of the places that you worked? Did you just kind of go around the country doing it?
Yeah, I traveled a lot to work. I left here and I went to New Orleans, worked on a paper mill for 3 months, and I didn't like that. It was too smelly. So I have to give you a little description of the work what we called it. I drug up and went to California, and I had a job lined up in Reno, and I visited my daughter. She was in Los Angeles. I visited her in Los Angeles for a weekend, and the next Monday morning I got up and headed for Reno, and I went through Las Vegas, and I belonged to the union then. So I went in the union hall in Las Vegas and said, "You got any work?" And he said, "Yeah, I can put you to work tomorrow." And he told me about the nuclear test site. And I said, "Boy, that's just what I need." You know, because I was almost broke. And so I stayed there instead of going to Reno. And I stayed there for 5 or 6 years. And I lived out at the test site. Once I got there, it took me a week to get there, because the first week you're indoctrinated. You get a full physical. I've never had a physical like that before or since. And security, all kind of questions. Had to remember everything, every place I had been and lived, and you know, and all that all my life. So I got through that. I finally got out there at noon on Friday. Went in to the housing office. One outfit controlled the entire test site. They were electrical outfit. They controlled everything on the test site. All trades and everything else they controlled. And if you need a doctor, see them. If you need a meal, see them. They controlled everything except quality control and security. They didn't control those two. And I went into, got a room and stayed that night, and I didn't like stay up in Area 12 because all they had up there was trailers to stay in. And so next day I moved down to Camp Mercury, which is the headquarters for the test site, and got a regular room. It was a 2-man room, and they were decent. And my buddy there, my roommate there, the one that actually worked over in Area 51 later on, when he came in, we introduced ourselves, and he found out I was from Fort Lauderdale, and he said, "You know Barney Stokes?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I've been working on the Alaskan pipeline." He said, "Up there," he said, "Barney Stokes was my buddy up there, my tool buddy." So, instant friendship. You know, you know somebody they had already worked with, and he knew where you came from and all that. So it was instant friendships, and we've been friends ever since. And You know, that's the way, when you're out working and living like that, you know, working around the country, you, about every 2 years, you'll run into the same crew you worked with someplace else. You'll run into them like that. At one time there, I could leave Fort Lauderdale, and drive across the country and have a friend someplace every night to stay with.
Well, it's certainly nice to have
Yep.
friends everywhere.
While you were working at the site, where did your wife stay?
I didn't have one.
You didn't have one then?
Not then. I haven't had one of those for 45 years. I've been single.
Do you have any other stories to share with us?
Well, let's see. Yeah, I could tell you one. I'd been driving on the docks all day long, unloading an Air Force ship. We had ships. The Air Force had supply ships. The Navy had runways on their base. We didn't have any runways over on our base, but we had supply ships that came in and tied up to our docks. You think that's funny, but it's not. And I'd been unloading them all day, and I got off and went to the barracks, took a bath, and about 6 o'clock they called me up from the orderly room and said, call the dispatcher. So I called the dispatcher at the motor pool, and he said, we need you to go to Fort Pepperell to take, we got a colonel here that's got to go over there. So I said, okay. So they told me I got to be over there and back in the morning so I can drive on the docks again. So I go over there, so I was okay. But someplace about 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up going over a culvert. Wrecked that new staff car.
Wow.
They didn't do anything to me for that because they told me I had to be back the next morning, you know.
Did you get any injuries from that?
No. In fact, when I got to the motor pool, hitchhiking the next morning, they said, you and Sergeant so-and-so getting the wrecker, go get the car. So we got in the wrecker and went and got the car.
They weren't mad at you for wrecking the car?
Well, it wasn't my fault.
It's true.
I was told to get back there. I just following orders. You know, little things like that happen to you all through this.
Mm-hmm.
How many years total did you serve?
4.
4 years? How old were you when you joined?
I was a baby. I was 17.
Fresh out of high school?
Well, I had a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 17, and I went in 3 weeks before the Korean War started. Back then, you didn't know those things because we didn't have the media we got now.
That's true. Yeah, now something happens and it's everywhere within
Yeah.
minutes even.
You can watch it while it's happening now.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was an amazing story.
I guess so.
Well, we thank you for your service.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Where's your payoff?
You said your birthday was when?
Last Wednesday.
Did you have any party or anything?
No, not here. But one of the girls at church, she got me a birthday cake, and I couldn't be church Wednesday because I take guys here other places. You know, I got a truck, and I drive. A lot of the guys don't. And I had a guy that I took to the Veterans Hospital up in Gainesville. I took him up there in the morning, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, told him they couldn't do the procedure for him that they had planned that day. So I had to go get him, and I missed my birthday at church. But day before yesterday, she brought it out here, the cake out here to me out here. And we had birthday cake last night here.
Wow.
Sounds fun. At least you got it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Nice meeting you.
I'm now